Hello and welcome back to the Edge of the Box podcast, a podcast by WhoScored.com in association with UltimateFan. I said association very, very weirdly there. I'm your host, Dan Bardell, joined by George Elek and Sam Tighe to look forward to this weekend's Premier League action. Today, our two main games are Tottenham against Arsenal, huge North London derby this time round, and also Aston Villa against Chelsea as well, which obviously Sam and myself are looking forward to previewing. Before we get into it though, boys, how are we both, George?
I'm good, mate. Thank you. How are you?
Yep, very, very well. Thank you. You've just diagnosed me with hay fever this morning, though, and it's correct. That's exactly what it is. I forgot hay fever existed, even though I've been sniffing all morning. Sam, you well?
Yeah, I usually get hay fever, so I'm a bit worried now that you've been pronounced.
It's coming.
But you've got a new baby, so you haven't left the house for like 8 weeks. So
that's very true. Yeah, that's very true. So I wouldn't know, would I? I just look out the window.
Very protected from hay fever this year. You got your cap, your beard. I feel like you prepared yourself well for hay fever season.
Yes, I'll be putting the face mask on the moment this podcast finishes.
Yeah, right then. Let's go. Let's look at the Premier League action. Actually, before we look into the fixtures this weekend, George, some games midweek. Annoyingly for the Predictions League, Manchester City decided to win 4-0 instead of 3-0 last night, which has irritated me greatly. We delayed this podcast by a day because of that game, but realistically, we should have just done it yesterday because we all know that Manchester City are just going to win every game now until the end of the season.
We could have basically done this we probably could have recorded this pod and not said the scoreline.
Exactly the same.
The only issue is I don't think we'd have called Kevin De Bruyne scoring a brilliant header to open the scoring.
Oh, what a looper.
But yeah, I mean, it feels pretty relentless. I mean, I think it seems to be unravelling a bit at Brighton. I'd be amazed if De Zerbi's time there, it feels like he checked out a couple of months ago, really. And for all of the credit and the praise that Brighton got for the appointment of De Zerbi, I actually don't think it looks very smart now. I think going out and recruiting a manager who did such an incredible job for a year or so, but who clearly has aspirations and ambitions to manage at a higher level means that their relentless progress into being a mid-table Premier League side into one who challenges for Europe, I think is going to be set back by what's happened over the last 6 months or so. But yeah, for City, it feels pretty relentless now for them. Although we have seen them put in a few performances in the last couple of weeks and months that suggest there might still be a slip to come.
Honestly, I was on the way home yesterday, listening to the game on the radio and the build-up. And the way people are talking about De Zerbi, I just don't get it. All I think he did last season, George, I'm not saying he's a bad manager because he's not, but I think Brighton would have finished sixth with Graham Potter. I don't think he's come in there and completely reinvented football at Brighton. I'm not saying he's a bad manager, but I think the praise he gets, I think it's so over the top, honestly.
Yeah. So do you remember last year when he came in and obviously everyone was like, oh, he's done a great job. And he did do a good job, but he took over. I think Brighton were fourth when Potter decided to leave.
Yeah.
So he took over a team in fourth. And then there was all the manager of the season calls, and obviously all the Villa fans pile and say, actually, it's Emery. And you started to compare the two. And Emery took over Villa in 16th. De Zerbi picked up a fourth place team. They'd already got about 15 points on the board after about 8 games. They were in a brilliant place. It was a lovely squad, a great midfield. You are going to walk into that job and you are going to do pretty well. What I will say is that every week I go on WhoScored.com and I look at all. This guy wants a pay rise. I look at all the
every week.
I
know every day. I wake up. The first thing I go to my homepage, my laptop homepage on my phone.
Well, I've got a new tattoo. I look at the match previews, and obviously at the bottom it's got the injury lists. This week, I was looking at all the previews. Basically, everyone's got at least 7 injuries. But Brighton appeared to have an entire 11, bar a goalkeeper, injured at this point.
And I feel like a lot of teams have had that at various points in the season. It's just their turn.
I'm kind of with you there. But it's not a surprise to me to see them lose 4-0 to Manchester City when they are clearly on their absolute last legs. Everyone is done. The manager, as you say, checks out might be a bit harsh, but it's clear that he's looking for some signs from the ownership that we're going to keep leveling up, right? And I don't think he's getting those signs. I think he's looking for them, but he's not receiving them. And I think at the end of the season, he's going to go, well, I can't go any better, so I think I'm going to leave.
Could we go to Milan, couldn't he? I heard yesterday.
Milan, Barca.
Bayern have been linked to, haven't they, at points?
I mean,
Barney and Ranić, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I'm saying he was linked before that,
yeah. I mean, he was linked with the Liverpool job as well, wasn't he?
Yes, he was. And the Man United job.
You think United look at him? Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad summer to be Roberto De Zerbi, is it?
Do you think if West Ham got rid of Moyes, they'd maybe make a play for him. I know they've been linked with Amorim this week. Do you think he'd leave Brighton for West Ham? I mean, this isn't, I don't know why I've started doing this. This was not.
What the hell?
Moyes to De Zerbi would be one of the greatest gear switches in terms of managerial appointments you've ever seen. Like, couldn't it be more different in terms of their philosophy and playing style?
Let's play a little game then. We'll assume that we're going to get renewed for next season. That we'll be doing the show next season. De Zerbi leaves Brighton. They've obviously got quite a unique way of buying players, selling players, and hiring staff. Let's all pick a name. Pick a name. I think he will go Brighton manager next season. Where would they go? George first.
Something like this. Well, there's talk of it already. I think Russell Martin would interest them.
I mean, unless Southampton go up, I don't think he'd go if Southampton went up.
I think pure playing style wise. I mean, he's one of those funny managers. Well, I really rate him, and I think the playing style fits. He's also just unbelievable in terms of being a figurehead of your club. Like, he is so good in terms of the way he talks about games. I can listen to him talk about football all day.
He's very interesting.
He's a good communicator, but he's still, this would be his third job. MK Dons, Swansea, Southampton, and he's yet to have any real tangible success. Like, taking MK Dons, they're mid-table, they're playing good football. Swansea, a couple of mid-table finishes playing good football. This time around, Saints are going to finish fourth, playing good football, but it's kind of where you expect them to be. So he definitely fits the playing style. I'm sure it will click at some point, but it would be a bit of a risk. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if he's the one they go for.
He'll be back at Norwich at some point, won't he, Russell Martin, in his career? I would have thought.
After he gets sacked from Brighton.
Potentially, yeah.
Martin has spoken about that a little bit, hasn't he? And he's kind of obviously dismissed it for now, which is exactly what you would do when you're in the middle of an attempt to get promoted with a fellow South Coast club. But pure playing style, it does make a lot of sense. I don't know. You put me on the spot, Dan. I can't.
You've got to pick a different name. Shall I pick a different name?
Sure. Right. It's too early in the morning for me to be thinking on my feet.
I mean, this is later than we've been doing. We've been doing bloody 7:30.
I've already had a nap this morning.
This is a joy to be doing it at this time. I've got two names in my head. One of them I don't know who he's the manager of, but he seems to be linked with every single job. Is it Knutson?
Knutson.
He seems to be linked with every job. I'll go completely outside the box, on the edge of the box. Will Still.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Very nice. Very nice.
There we go.
What about Vincenzo Italiano at Fiorentina? He plays lovely possession football.
Motta. Lovely
stuff. Motta's getting in the Champions League with Bologna.
That's true. He's not coming either.
He's not going to go to Brighton. Well, I assume.
I mean, we'll come back next season, hopefully, and talk through this again when Brighton do change manager. No doubt we'll all be wrong, and they'll just hire someone from Ecuador that we've never heard of to be their manager. But yeah, we weren't supposed to do this at the start of the show. So yeah, I've really got us off to a great start by talking about Brighton for 8 minutes, which we weren't supposed to be doing. We were supposed to be talking about the midweek football. But I suppose we can feed the midweek football into what we're going to do. I bloody love football. I do. Such a great time. Right. Tottenham against Arsenal then, George, the North London derby. Ben, the Spurs fans, clearly done this running order, I think, because we're starting with Spurs. We're not going to start with Arsenal, who are flying at the moment. We're going to start with Tottenham and do a bit of a centre-back comparison, apparently. How does Spurs' centre-back pairing of Van der Ven and Romero compare with Saliba and Gabriel? I'll get the stats up in a minute and remind myself. But, in terms of...
Is this a trick question?
Well, yeah, because on the eye test, I mean, Arsenal's defence keeps clean sheets and Spurs' defence doesn't, I guess.
I mean, this is no slight on Spurs' centre-back.
No, because they're both good players.
Both good players. I think the way that Ange sets them up to play means that I think it would be very unfair to judge them purely on clean sheets, because that isn't really the way that this team is built. Unlike Arsenal, where Arsenal's defensive record, yes, of course, they've got an array of very good attacking players who are having very good seasons, but it's built upon an incredible defence. It's built upon, Arsenal know going into games, if they score 2 goals, the chances are they're going to win the game, because they very rarely concede more than one. And given the churn that we've seen, certainly at left back, where they've had kind of 3 left backs, where you could probably argue that none are natural left backs, and Tomiyasu and Kiewor and Zinchenko, hasn't really seemed to matter, because they're the base of Saliba and Gabriel, and then of course Ben White, who continues to have just improve at that right back position, has been so solid. I think there's a fair argument that Saliba is one of the best centre backs in world football at the moment, and I don't think Gabriel's far behind that. So it's no, this isn't a go at Spurs centre back duo, but this is also just not a fair comparison in my mind.
Yeah, and this isn't a go at who scored, but actually it is a little bit. It's a little
But
bit.
yeah,
of a
the
go
algorithm
at
doesn't like
algorithm.
Saliba, does it?
Yeah, because I've got the stats here, and we'll flash them up on the screen now as well. So basically, Romero and Gabriel have got the higher rating of their pairings, but they've both scored 4 goals, and Saliba and Van der Ven have scored 2. So it feels like to me it's the goals that boost up the average rating. Because another, I think this is an incredible stat. I didn't know this. I don't know whether this has been well known this season. I hadn't realised. Out of Arsenal players, the percentage of maximum minutes played, William Saliba has played every second. This season, I didn't realise that because obviously he was injured at the back end of last season, wasn't he? And it cost them dearly.
Yeah.
Every second of football this season.
Yeah, like on the Premier League wide, top 10 most minutes played as a percentage. Arsenal have like 6 players in the top 10. Obviously, Saliba's right up there and Gabriel too, but Saka and Odegaard and those guys, Rice, they're just played all the time, constantly. And this is the complaint from Arsenal fans. The second season in a row, there's been a dip in April. Is Mikel Arteta understanding how to rotate a squad properly and keep key players fresh? Arguably, no. However, they also know that if Saliba or Gabriel drop out of the team for any moment, then they're significantly more vulnerable because this is a top pairing. And I'd echo what George says. Spurs' centre-back pairing is really, really good. I like a lot of what Romero and Van der Ven bring to the table, but Saliba and Gabriel are better, and they're also a better partnership. They're the best partnership in the league.
Well, the best partnership in the world, I think. I can't think of a better partnership in world football at the moment. I can't.
No,
is there a better one?
Maybe not. All of the elite clubs all just recycle their centre back pairing so much.
Yeah.
You know, Bayern, Barcelona, Real Madrid. Real Madrid have had so many injuries that you can't even call what would even be their partnership. I don't even know.
Nacho's playing at the moment, isn't he? Or has been playing as a centre back.
Konsa and Torres.
Konsa and Torres is right up there, are they? With the volume of clean sheets.
Dizazi and Badiashile.
Maybe less so.
George Saliba has been involved in 16 clean sheets this season, so I'm assuming Arsenal as a whole have kept 16 clean sheets this season.
That makes sense. Every second.
That's it. Well, yeah. We'll do the matter. That 16 clean sheets it's big, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean it's an incredible effort, and that's kind of what it comes down to. Where, as I said a second ago, like that's what their success is built on. There are a lot of, and there still are question marks around the decision to go out and sign David Raya over the summer, but I think he's played a big part in that. I'm not saying that if Ramsdale was in goal, they wouldn't have had a similarly good clean sheet record, but certainly that. I think
I said when I signed him, he's a better keeper than Ramsdale, and he's found his confidence again. Raya, he lacked a bit of confidence at one point. He's got it back now, and he's such a astute goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think it's very hard with hypotheticals to say what would have happened, but what you absolutely cannot say now is you can't criticise the decision to do it because a product of that has been what's happened. And if they are to go and win the league, which is still a real possibility, then for all of the incredible season of Martin Odegaard, for all of Bukayo Saka's amazing form in flashes for Kai Havertz since the turn of the year, it'll be the defensive unit that will be the main reason for that, because you make it 16 clean sheets with a few games to go. That makes it very easy to win 4 matches because it's minimal what you have to do at the other end in order to do so.
I'm not having this running order at all. The first 6 questions are all about Spurs. You can tell that Ben definitely wrote this running order. It can't have been written by anyone else. I'm going to go off piste. I've already started the show in that manner, so I may as well continue. Arsenal in midweek, Sam, just a joy to watch against Chelsea. Still talking about like the centre forward, and look, I get it, and I do think they will sign a centre forward in the summer, but just goals coming from absolutely anywhere. You got that well-known goal scorer Ben White getting doubles, haven't you? They've turned Havertz into someone that gets doubles. There's just goals coming from every, except for at the moment Saka.
Yes, except for Saka. It's amazing, isn't it? Because it was only 10 days ago that everybody was looking at this Arsenal team off the back of losses to Villa and Bayern and saying, "Oh, I don't think they've got much left in the tank here." And then you watch them play against Chelsea, and they're just humming, aren't they? And when you've got that many different goal scorers and you rack up the score like that, it speaks to a team full of confidence, full of sharpness and fitness. And yet 10 days before, we were questioning every element of that because of what had happened. So we all have to be a bit aware of.
We all know nothing, don't we? We come on every week and we give our opinions, but wait till we know nothing.
We just need to be a little bit more aware of outcome and results bias, and accept that confidence plays a huge part in football. And also, if you play Chelsea without Cole Palmer, you're going to have a good time. You're going to have a good old time.
Fingers crossed that happens at the weekend.
Yeah, true. We'll get to that one in a little bit, I guess, but we'll see. But yeah, Arsenal, when they play like that and when they're playing confidently and they ping the ball around, fantastic. Rice cleaving through midfield. Martin Odegaard, 10 out of 10, like one of the best performances I've seen this season. And that's saying something because every time he plays, I think he's absolutely sensational. Yeah, just brilliant. It doesn't even matter that Saka's not scoring at the moment. He's allowed to have a couple of weeks where he goes a bit dry because everybody else is stepping up. And look at Trossard setting the standard for the team. Not even really a first 11 player, supposedly. No. But at the moment, he's the one that's basically killing off these games for them in a really ice-cold fashion.
Starting up the games, isn't he, as well? He's getting those first goals, those winners. I find it funny if you score the first goal in a 5-0 game, technically you've scored the winner, haven't you? That's the winner.
That's the winner.
He's got two winners this week, Wolves and Chelsea for Trossard. He's been a good signing. I think we've spoke about him before, but he's been a great signing. He's a lovely little diminutive footballer, isn't he, George?
Trossard.
Yeah. George, clearly, I could tell by his face, he was not listening to what I was saying. He was doing something. I was comparing his EFL podcasts. He was not listening to the Premier League podcast that he's on.
Sadly, it's reading a message from my wife about the building works going on in our house today. So nothing quite as glamorous as that.
I mean, during the podcast,
but I knew it was Trossard. So that's.
You threw a guess out of a name of what I was doing about. I think
because you said diminutive.
I didn't even say the word right.
What are you meant to do when you get a message saying urgent? What do you think? You have to engage, don't you?
Downstairs?
No, I'm at the office.
Oh, I thought you did this podcast at your house.
No.
Forget the podcast for a second. We've said the office. Where's the office? What's the office?
We have an office in Soho.
Who does?
Not the Top Media Limited.
You and Addo got your own office.
Come on, Daniel.
Oh, I didn't know that.
How would I know that? We're a media empire. We're magnates.
Speak to him every bloody week.
I just wonder why you had Leyton Orient and Plymouth Argyle artwork in your house.
It's the three champions from last year.
No, I get that, but I did think was not sure you'd be allowed it.
Where's the Oxford? Yeah.
Did you not think about putting them on the wall in like a straight line?
Mate,
forget that.
Honestly, if you could see this room, like there's in front of me, there is one strip of soundproof foam where I got bored after 10 minutes. I never finished the rest of it. It is a shambles.
I can't believe you've got your own office.
You can come work out of here.
Should we get an office, Sam?
Yes.
We get an office. Yeah, I mean, the world's been changed here. That could be your office. Sam's just got an office with wild cats roaming around.
Yeah. Trossard is good. Yes.
Yeah, forget that. Yeah,
Trossard is, but he's very clutch. I would say that's the impressive thing about him. For someone who comes in and out of the side, doesn't get regular minutes, but impacts games as consistently as he does is incredibly impressive. And when you think the amount of goals that he scored this season in not very many minutes, it's 10 goals from 1,359 minutes. I mean, he's obviously benefit often with players like him who come off the bench a lot. You benefit from games being more open, and therefore, the chances he's scoring a goal are maybe more likely. But either way, I think despite a pretty big fee paid for a player, in their late 20s, I think if you told Arsenal, they could fast forward and see how much of an impact he'd have had, they'd have been absolutely over the moon with what he's done.
Yeah. I mean, North London derby, obviously, this is a huge game, Sam. Spurs haven't played. It feels like Spurs haven't played for about a year.
Yeah, it's been ages.
Since that Newcastle game. Arsenal have had about 3 or 4 games in that time, and they've I think they both lost, didn't they? The last time that Spurs played, they both lost that Premier League weekend. Spurs losing to Newcastle and Arsenal losing to Villa. But since then, Arsenal have had the game to kind of get themselves out of the rut.
Yeah,
it feels like Spurs have just had time to stew.
Yeah,
how important is that going into this game and the tail of the game?
And sometimes, like, if you get to this stage of the season, you could be really appreciative of the rest. Like, if you were Aston Villa and you were given like 10 days between fixtures, you'd be absolutely delighted.
Yeah.
But Spurs have played.
Villa are actually better when they don't have a rest.
That's very true, actually. Yeah, but Spurs have 32 games this season they've played in the league, and they've had they've gone absolutely nowhere in the Carabao Cup, and they've been all. How did they get on in the FA Cup? Can't even remember, but. Fine, didn't get
knocked them out, didn't they?
Yeah, so and quite early. So Spurs have not really played this season. They don't need a rest. They are not a team that has clocked up 40, 45, 50 games and can really go to work in those 10 days and recover and rest and get ready, they've probably just been like, give us a game. Please give us a game. And it happens to be that the next one is basically the biggest game of their season. It's Arsenal at home, which recently has been a win. More like this game used to be 2-2 every single time. And then, over the last 3 years, the home team has tended to win. There'll be expectation. There'll be nervousness. Last time they played, they got absolutely spanked by Newcastle. They've got some injuries to consider as well. Yeah, I mean, I'd be a bit like, you're sort of chomping at the bit, but you're not doing it in the right mindset. Do you know what I mean? It's like, come on, give us the game and come on. And it's not great. Like, I wouldn't have enjoyed this break if I was a Spurs fan. And then, of course, off the back of this, they've got to go and play several midweeks and cram all those games in. They've got, there'll be 5 more to play in the space of about 3 weeks. Just feels very unnecessary, but I guess it's just the way the fixture calendar falls.
Unfortunately, isn't it? For them, they can't do much about it. Yeah, I mean, the 2-2 Xhaka yellow card bet's gone this season. The printing money bet that's been there for the last few years. And Sam touched on it there, George, about injuries. Usually having a break in fixtures, you think, can get some players back. The opposite's happened for Tottenham because they've lost someone for the season. In bad news for Spurs fans, bad news for Timo, my dog, as well, because I won't be getting to do it again this season. No Udogie for the rest of the season.
No doggy. No. Which is it's pretty damaging. I mean, it does feel like this North London derby is. I feel like we say this quite a lot, but there's so much riding on it because you've got Spurs who are fighting for that 4th spot. With the whole coefficient drama, where 5th maybe now not be enough in order to get that Champions League spot. So suddenly it's that tussle for 4th between Villa and Spurs. Spurs obviously desperate to, if Spurs were to win this game, it would probably be a final, if not the final nail in the coffin for Arsenal's title hopes. And then you've got Arsenal similarly trying to win the title, but also a win against Spurs would probably put the nail in the coffin of their nail, not the nail, in the Champions League coffin as well. So there's loads riding on it. So to lose Udogie at this stage isn't ideal. I agree with Sam where sometimes a break is good. It was interesting watching Wayne Rooney talk about Liverpool's mindset and Virgil van Dijk talking about the 12:30 kickoff on Saturday, and Rooney's mindset being, well, if you lose a game like that, you should want to get out there and play the next day. And it kind of feels like you can compare that with Spurs, who go and lose 4-0 against Newcastle in an away display that was completely off it. It was their worst display of the season by miles. And rather than being able to put that right, they've then got to sit on it and kind of stew on it before a huge game. So the injuries, frustration, their home form is still pretty good. That's the one thing for Spurs. They're a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team right now. At home, they're a good side. Away from home, they're not.
Always go 1-0 down though at home, don't they? Always.
Yeah. But also, there's a big opposition kind of bias to their home form this season. Where yes, at home they've been pretty good for the most part, but if you compare it with the teams and where they are in the league, they've lost 4 games at home this season. That they came against Villa, who are currently 4th, West Ham are currently 8th, Chelsea are currently 9th. They're yet to play Arsenal and Man City, so they've won 3 games against the top 9. So it suggests there that when they come up against the better teams in the league, it's not quite as, albeit you are including Chelsea in that ridiculous 11v9 game. But yeah, I think Arsenal will come into this as the better side, in better shape, and look likely, to my mind, to go and get the 3 points.
Tottenham play the same game. As far as I'm concerned, at home, it's the same game every time. Every time I've watched them recently, it's like the Forest, Luton. Just look at the fixtures. They beat Forest 3-1, Luton 2-1, Palace 3-1. I'm pretty sure they went 1-0 down in all 3 of these games, at least 2 of them. And I'm pretty sure
Wolves
the goal
one, didn't they, as well, where they lost? They went 1-0 up. No, they went 1. No, they lost to Wolves, didn't they? Lost 2-1, didn't they? To Wolves. João Gomez double.
But they keep scoring the same. Not only do they keep going behind in the first 20 minutes, they keep scoring the same goal to equalise. Timo Werner skips down the left outside, rolls the ball across, tap in. Or Brennan Johnson skips down the outside on the right, rolls the ball across. It's a tap in for the other side. I'm like, I feel like I'm going mad watching Spurs at the moment. They can only score one type of goal and they can only play one type of game state. They have to go 1-0 down at home to a worse team and then they will score the exact type of goal they scored last week. Oh, okay, everything's fine. Is this all just a complete fever dream? Am I imagining the entire thing, or is it actually happening?
That is exactly what's happening.
It's weird, man. It's so weird that all their games can be so similar and to take place in the exact same way. I mean, fair play to Ange. He's got that game coached perfectly. He knows exactly what's going to happen at every time. I assume Arsenal is going to be different.
Yeah, it has to be. Well, it will be different because I'll be sat there and I won't be going, ooh, doggy, to my dogs. So who comes in at left back, Sam? Because I was talking to Ben about this yesterday, actually, because obviously the options are Ben Davies. You move there's that thumb again. You move Van der Ven to left back and play Dragerson and kind of make yourself a bit modern. But I don't think that's what Ange will do because he's got his tactics. Ben saying Emerson Royale at left back, which I suppose against Saka makes sense because Porro's going to be back by the sound of it as well.
I don't trust Emerson. Personally, don't trust him at all.
I think you've got to give him a little bit of credit. He's a better player than he was last season.
He surprised me at how well he coped at points this season. I would just play Ben Davies. The experienced head, the left footer. I appreciate what you're saying about Saka cutting inside, and but Saka doesn't just religiously cut inside. He can go on the outside, and he also releases Ben White with those passes quite a lot. So that Arsenal are constantly using the width of that right flank. So I don't think it's right to be like, okay, let's get a guy who can cut inside with Saka. That can't be the only focus. And I would just go for the guy who's definitely been there and seen it, done it, and plays left back. Although I accept
mobile enough to do what Ange wants his fullbacks to do, though.
No,
into the middle of the park.
No, but
I'm not saying that's Royale's game, but at least he's mobile.
Yeah, but no one can do what Udogie does. In terms of carrying the ball forward and just turning on the jets and going, right, I'm going to burst 40 yards. I'm going to cut left or right, infield or outside. I'm going to rinse you, and I'm going to take my entire team from defence into attack. He does that better than almost any left back in the league. And of course, they don't have another player with that skill set because they're very hard to find. Davies can't do that. Unfortunately, that is gone from their game this weekend and for the rest of the season. They can't rely on that. They have to find other ways to get the ball forward, which is a good thing. Porro's probably going to be fit because he's really important for build-up and circulation. They're just going to have to try and grit their teeth and bear it and go through it. And I think Davies is the answer there for me.
Do you agree with that, George? I'm not sure I do, to be honest. Respect Sam's opinion massively, but I do disagree with that.
I think I agree. I think
you both I think what you're talking about.
I think he's dependable. Didn't Royale get sent off in this 2 seasons ago as well?
Yeah, he did. But I remember that red card. I did not agree with it.
But he is someone. I was looking. His disciplinary record is actually way better at Spurs than I thought it was, with fewer minutes. But then in 2 seasons at Betis, he picked up 20 yellow cards and a red over the course of 2 campaigns. Like he is someone who. This is going to be, as I said a second ago. There's a lot riding on this. It's going to be like a proper atmosphere, and I think you need cool heads, and Ben Davies is certainly that. And I'm not sure you want Emerson Royale up against Bukayo Saka for 90 minutes if tempers do flare.
What about Son, George?
What, left back?
not left back. No, he's scoring goals for fun in the first half of the season. I feel this has happened with a few players. They've gone away in January playing the tournament and they've come back and just aren't the same. And Salah feels very much quite similar to me.
Yeah, it feels a bit harsh, this. I mean, I know it's not right to judge players purely on goals and assists, but since he came back from the Asia Cup, he's got 4 assists and 3 goals in kind of 8 league games. I mean, he was very poor. He was very poor and was taken off after an hour against Newcastle, and that, again, because they haven't played for 2 weeks, that lives longest in the memory. But I don't think there's too much to get concerned about. He'll definitely be one that should have benefited for this rest, given how congested his season's been. And you would think, we talk about how Spurs play the same game in every game. I'm not necessarily sure that they're going to be able to against Arsenal, who will certainly implement their own style, which is heavily possession based. But if Arsenal do play a high line, as they often do, then Son should be a player with Werner as well on the left who will be able to exploit that.
Well, then, so we've got the combined 11 from Who Scored, but what we're going to do for a bit of fun, we're going to go through and pick our own combined 11 first, and then see how it matches up to the Who Scored 11. I disagree with the first pick on the Who Scored 11. To be fair, so let's go then. Goalkeeper. We're going to play 4-3-3.
Is this based on performances this season?
No. This is we'll exclude unavailable players because that's what Who Scored are tied to. That's what they have to do. But we're going to pick our team. Okay. That means we can't have Udogie.
That's a shame.
We're going to pick our team. Who are we having in goal in the North London 11?
Vicario.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what Who Scored have done. I would have had Raya. But okay, we'll go with we'll go with Vicario has had a very good season. So okay, we'll go with that. Right back. This is basically a vote. This is
that is tough.
I think Porro.
Yeah, I do love Pedro Porro. He's one of my favourite players in the Premier League.
It's easy to have recency bias because Ben White scored a really nice cross.
He's also been very good for years, Ben White.
It's also been really good all season.
Yeah, he starts centre, didn't he?
Depends what style of football we're going to play as well, really, doesn't it? You know, what kind of managers are we as a three?
Well,
I imagine there'd be some mixed messages. You two would agree and give your instructions, and then when you're not looking, I'll go and whisper to the player, "Don't do that."
I'd want to play squeeze ball, just press relentlessly, go direct, don't retain possession.
All right, because you've got a tactical plan in mind. We'll play your football. So should we go for Porro?
Yeah.
Centre backs.
Yeah, the Arsenal lot.
Said, yeah, we have to put the Arsenal two together. The best centre back pairing in the world. That isn't what WhoScored have done. They've got Romero and Gabriel. What's Saliba not being the 11?
Yeah, well, the algorithm hates Saliba. It's like one of those Illuminati things. We will get to the bottom of this one day.
Gabriel wrote the algorithm, so he did it.
So this is what I'd like to do here. Left back. So obviously we can't have Udogie. He can't go into the team. WhoScored have got Zinchenko. I'm going to make a suggestion because you could put Kivior in there, centre back playing left back. Let's put Van der Ven in our 11 at left back, and then we'll be a three. We'll be a three on the ball.
How many minutes has he played at left back this season?
Absolutely not. But that's what we're going to do.
Let's go with Kivior.
We're going to use the flex. What? No, let's go with
Kivior. Let's go for the guy that's played left back.
He'll be on the outside left of the three. It'll be lovely.
Let's go for the guy who's played at least 1 minute of left back.
Oh, can we put Timber in there? He's fit now. I don't really want to put Kivior or Zinchenko.
Put Tomiyasu there.
Or Tomiyasu. I mean, we might as well just leave Zinchenko in there.
Or just don't have a left back.
We don't want Zinchenko.
We don't want Zinchenko.
No.
We'll go Kivior then. That's Sam's made it clear he wants Kivior. The midfield three for WhoScored is Declan Rice, Ødegaard, and James Maddison. Yep,
that's fine.
Yeah, I agree.
I've gone off James Maddison.
Yeah, but you can't just be about to recency bias here. He was unbelievable for.
You can't just go off that.
Arsenal. I liked that Arsenal midfield three the other night with Partey in there.
You can't put Partey in there.
I'm not saying you can. I'm just telling you that I liked it.
And I will say that obviously Basuma's dropped off. Pape Matasara's got better as the season goes on.
See, I think he's dropped off as well. I think he was really important first half of the season. I think he's dropped off in the second half of the season.
He might have dropped off against Newcastle or something, but I think he's got better since January. Generally, I think it doesn't matter. We agreed. Madison.
Yeah. Okay. We'll go Madison. I mean, Madison's got a very high rating of 7.28. In fairness, so you probably have to have him in. And then the front three, WhoScored have gone Saka, Havertz, and Son on the left. He hasn't really played on the left this season. So you're definitely having Saka, aren't you?
Yeah, Saka on the right, Son on the left.
Are you back?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Up front now, got.
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I guess we'll go the same. Feels a bit harsh on Trossard. But a good impact sub to have, I guess, to bring on.
Exactly. He'll come off the bench and score
basically, the only thing we changed from the WhoScored 11 was Romero out for Saliba.
And that is the right thing to do. We fixed a bug. Perfect.
Yeah. That's all we did. Right, then let's have some predictions for the North London derby there. I'll come to you first.
Arsenal to beat Spurs 2-1.
I have gone for 3-1 this morning. What have you gone for, Sam?
3-1 to Arsenal.
3-1 as well.
Doesn't matter what happens.
Dan, did you go 3-1 to Arsenal?
Oh yeah, not 3-1.
Yeah.
No, irrelevant game. Might as well not play.
Not when they're vying for Champions League football with Aston Villa. You predict them to lose every day of the week. Talking of predictions, we did throw in some midweek predictions, and obviously we had last weekend's predictions as well. I don't have the graphics for what we did at the weekend in front of me, but it was a good weekend for Sam and Jonathan, who made some excellent predictions, and George and myself didn't make very good ones at the weekend. Midweek, low scoring. Obviously, there wasn't as many games, but Sam and Jonathan, you got 3 points in the midweek games. Georgia, lowly 2. I've managed to sneak 4 somehow, which is actually, not bad considering. So you're on 212 with Jonathan at the moment, Sam. I'm on 208. George on 179. So it's again, every weekend's huge in the predictions league at the moment. It really is.
It is. I took some midweek risks, and I thought I sensed Liverpool dropping points, but I didn't think they'd lose. Flat out lose. So I was like, when Everton scored relatively early, I was like, my 1-1 is coming in. This is 3 points for me. Dan's going to be fuming. But Everton kept scoring and Liverpool didn't. Unbelievable.
You were given the responsibility as well by Jonathan, weren't you, in the WhatsApp group? I felt that was a big sign of trust. I felt
he did the last midweek. I actually think he did that because he looked at the fixtures and went, I don't really know what to say here, because I think none of us really scored many points, and they were tough fixtures to call. I think he looked at it and went, nah.
While I've got it up, shall we do the rest of our predictions then?
Can do.
Before we preview the big one, Villa Chelsea. Right, West Ham against Liverpool, please, George.
3-1 Liverpool.
3-1 to Liverpool. Sam?
Desmond. 2-2.
You love starting with a 2-2. I've gone for 2-1 to Liverpool on this occasion. They're not going to keep losing, surely. Surely not. Wolves v Luton, Sam?
1-0 to Wolves.
1-0 to Wolves. I've gone for 1-1. I was nearly brave and went for Luton. George?
Yeah, 1-1.
1-1 as well. Fulham against Crystal Palace, please, George.
1-1.
1-1. I've gone for 2-0 to Palace. Sam?
Desmond, 2-2.
Another 2-2. Right, Manchester United v Burnley, Sam. Huge game for Burnley.
2-0 to United.
Clean sheet for United. Jesus.
Funny. I've gone for 3-2 to Manchester United. George?
Sam's friend Desmond.
2-2. Right. This is no, it's not a wild prediction. I've got Newcastle 4, Sheffield United 1. George?
2-1 Newcastle.
2-1 to Newcastle. Sam?
3-1 to Newcastle.
Ooh, that could be a critical one in the predictions league this weekend. Everton v Brentford, please, George.
1-0 Everton.
1-0 to Everton. Sam?
1-1.
Yep, I've gone for 1-1 as well.
Did you know that Everton have won 12 games this season and last season at home in the Premier League, and they've won all of them to 0?
Really? I didn't know that.
It keeps flashing up on my TV screen that Everton's defensive record is better than everyone's
every time.
Everyone except the top 3-4. So there must be something in it.
Yeah, it baffles me every time I see that. Every time I see it, it surprises me that there is good defensive. Like sometimes I watch them and think they actually look all over the place for a Sean Dyche side. Yeah. Obviously not at the weekend. Sorry, not in midweek against Liverpool. Bournemouth v Brighton, George.
I have got 2-0 Bournemouth.
I've got 2-1 Bournemouth. Sam?
I have got 2-1 Bournemouth.
Have you skipped the Villa game on purpose?
Well, yeah, because we're previewing it.
Cool.
Yeah, I did say as well because we're previewing
the big one.
Shortly, George was texting his wife at the time about the building work. What's building work going on at your house as well? It was construction of some sort.
Yeah, well, because we got it recently and there's stuff to do, you know.
You'll have like Groundhog Day every day, wakes up his ill and he's got construction going on.
Who's been ill for the last 5 weeks?
This is hay fever. This is not an illness.
Okay, you're not well, are you?
You know, when people get something and they say it's their superpower. Hay fever is my superpower.
It's my super weakness.
Yeah, it's horrible. It's actually horrible. Forest against Man City, plays down.
2-0 to City.
I've got 3-1 City. George?
3-0 City.
3-0 City. So they'll just go and annoy us all and win 4-0 again. I suspect. Right then, Aston Villa against Chelsea. George, I'll come to you, the neutral, first. Excellent news in midweek. Villa have obviously won 2 Premier League games in a row. They've got through to the semi-finals of the Europa Conference League, which actually I'm still not that bothered about, but don't tell anyone. And Unai Emery has extended his contract by a year, so it sounds like there's been an option that's been taken up to extend his contract by a year, and they're going to go back in the summer and he's going to sign an even longer contract. The Villa owners are talking about Emery being their version of Sir Alex Ferguson. I think it's a bit ambitious to say that he'll be there for 20-odd years, but I think we can safely say Villa might be able to make him their Pep Guardiola.
What, and go and relentlessly win the Premier League?
I said some bold things on TalkSport yesterday. Saying in the next couple of years, Villa will be challenging for the Premier League title.
Do you know, it was interesting how that Sir Alex Ferguson kind of quote seemed to pop up in a lot of journalists' pieces as if that kind of been briefed by the club. It seems like a really weird thing to say. Like, I mean, Unai Emery has done an incredible job there, and I understand why they're excited about him signing a new contract and being there for the foreseeable. But surely they're not naive enough at Villa to think that, you know, 2 seasons worth of good performance is enough to suddenly say, yes, this is the guy to manage us for the next 25 years. Like,
I'd give him a 25-year contract now.
You and Pards.
Pards is still getting paid by Newcastle, isn't it?
But it's, you know...
still under contract.
Unai Emery is not the first person to make a very good start at a football club. Like, it's not beyond the realms of possibility that things could tail off quite quickly. Football is generally cyclical. Sir Alex Ferguson had periods of underperformance that only were ridden out either because they were early on in his managerial career and they wanted to retain the faith, or because of what he'd already done. And by what benchmark is Emery going to be judged upon? Like if Villa come fourth this season and qualify for the Champions League, does that mean that a season like Newcastle's this season, where they end up tumbling down to eighth and not being knocked out of the Champions League early, as is the case with Newcastle now and Eddie Howe, where people, you've got Newcastle fans saying we need to move on, we need to hire somebody else. Could that happen with Villa?
Newcastle fans are saying that. I don't think
not all. Not all. Some definitely are. I mean, but, you know, you can find.
Which is not a great barometer.
It's not a great barometer of anything. I agree, but like, all I'm saying is that Eddie Howe's stock has definitely fallen quite a lot. Where this time last year, you probably would have had Newcastle fans saying give him a job for life, and now it's like, oh, let's see how we get on next season without Champions League football. So, yeah, I mean, it's a nice soundbite.
Yeah,
it's not much more than that.
Obviously, I'm delighted, Dan. But it is a bit weird. Like the Sir Alex Ferguson figure quote is a bit weird. And also, like what Villa are doing with Emery and like giving him the incredible amount of control that he has over the club. It's a bit anachronistic, isn't it, in the modern game? Like over the last 10 years, particularly in the Premier League, we have seen football move very quite clearly away from the Sir Alex figure, away from the Wenger figure, away from the manager who controls everything, who does everything, has a huge say in transfers, and more towards like a football structure. Definitely Italian style, sports director, director of football, chief scouting, analytics, everyone pulls together. We've even seen managers rebranded as head coaches. We don't even use the word manager that much anymore. And Unai Emery is
a head coach, but he isn't a head coach. He's a manager.
Unai Emery manages this entire football club. Like he has almost unparalleled control at this level. This is everything that football has been moving away from for the last 10 years in England. Now, if it's working for Villa right now, fantastic. And of course, he's got close confidants like Monchi as head of sports operations. The whole team is working. He's got half of Villarreal's coaching staff and sounds like he's going to get a few more in the summer, like furnishing him with everything they possibly can.
Everyone from every data analyst from Spain.
Like, honestly, like they're just giving him absolutely everything. And based on what he's produced at Villa so far, perfectly justified. But as George says, sentiment can turn one year to the next. And this is essentially a model, what Villa are producing here, that English football has very much like turned its back on over the last 10 years very steadily. So it is a bit weird to watch it all play out. But you can't say that the last 18 months haven't justified immense faith and trust in Unai Emery, because look at what he's done.
Are you two dragging me down a little bit?
Sorry.
I was expecting.
No, obviously it's brilliant. It's brilliant news. It's brilliant news.
I think it's the best news that Villa could get, because there's been so. I mean, people may have seen or may not have seen. Been having a debate. It's a nonsense debate, really, with a TalkSport presenter this week. He still insists that Emery would leave if Manchester United or a big club came in for it. He just wouldn't, would he, Sam? If he signs a contract till 2030, let's say, as long as he's not sacked, Unai Emery is the kind of man, he will be there till 2030 at the very least.
Yes, he sticks around and he puts everything into the job. And you've seen a couple of his sound bites. Like, you know, he is asking for the same level of ambition from Aston Villa that Roberto De Zerbi is asking for from Brighton. What we started talking about with this podcast, De Zerbi is fishing for that ambition.
Why I did it.
He wants the ambition. He wants to be shown that from the owners so that he can keep leveling up. Unai Emery wants the same. Everybody wants that. Every manager, every head coach wants that. Unai Emery is being shown that. He's been given that. He's been shown plans that, yes, we can keep going. We can keep going. And he's like, cool. As long as you guys stick around and you guys are into this, I'm into this too. And so it's a two-way street on that one. And Emery will pour his heart and soul into everything that he does as long as he is there, and he will never give up and he will never resign. So as long as Villa keep their end of the bargain, he will keep his.
Yeah. And George, Villa beat Bournemouth. I mean, the win against Bournemouth, I think, was one of Villa's most impressive wins of the season. They just played 120 minutes on Thursday against Lille. So you've got the emotional and mental tiredness and the fatigue, obviously, in the body that comes with that. They played Arsenal Sunday as well, which would have took a lot out of them, going there and getting that win the week before. Then they play against Bournemouth, who can be a tough side to play against with the style in which they play football, very, very energetic. It was Villa's best home performance of 2024. And even more so than that, you know, like I said, all those things I've just mentioned. And they had 7 players missing. You know, that is an impressive feat. Do you think now that, people talking about how Villa would juggle the two competitions of the Thursday, Sunday. Villa have actually only lost one game off the back of a Europa Conference week across the entirety of the season. To be fourth in the semi-final, 7 players out of the week, and you have to say they've managed it very, very well.
Unbelievably well. I guess the only caveat to this is where Villa were when we started talking about this, where they were kind of in the mix right at the very top. But that's not to take anything away from what Emery is doing, because I personally, going into the season, the idea of Villa going far in the competition and also exceeding all expectations in the league seemed pretty impossible. So, and as you say, against Bournemouth, 1-0 down at half-time, off the back of that.
I know we scored just before we scored.
1-0 down, getting to great goal from Rodgers.
He's turning into a good player as well.
I wasn't convinced he was going to have an impact immediately at Villa, and he's making me look a bit foolish. If only I hadn't written an article about it. It's a bit of a shame.
Oh, please, send me that, please.
You retweeted it at the time.
Oh God, undo that retweet.
You can find it. Well, annoyingly, Ali said he thought he was going to do really well, so it's fine.
No.
You can find it at ntt20.com. But it's really, it's really impressive. I mean, as I say, I'll flip it back on you. What if you finish fourth and say you win the Conference League, or it doesn't really matter. Who really cares what happens in terms of expectation levels? What's fine? So Champions League football next season. You probably recruit quite well in the summer again and spend some more money. What is acceptable next season?
Top 6, I would say.
Yeah. So if you finish 7th next season with a Champions League campaign, then that's.
But I honestly don't think that would happen. I think Unai Emery knows how to just manage it all. I think in Europe, there isn't anyone better at managing in Europe and the league.
But he has had periods in Spain where he's won European competitions and finished mid-table.
But I would say that he hasn't had the resources at those clubs to be able to manage them. They're seriously punching above their weight. And I think Villa are punching above their weight at the moment as well. But I think with the recruitment that they do in the summer and the fact that, he's starting to look at like he's a long-term appointment. He's been there for a while, going into like his kind of 3rd season at the club. I honestly think that Villa are just going to keep going up and progressing as a football club as long as he's there. I do honestly think in the next couple of years, if they keep hold of Emery, can spend some money, qualify for the Champions League and the riches that come with that, I would back Villa under Emery to get into the knockouts of the Champions League. He took Villarreal out to the semi-finals. I know it's a new format next season, which possibly makes life a little bit more difficult. Realistically, none of us know, because none of us have got anything that we can measure it against.
You've played Football Manager, Dan, and you've played the new format.
Those games come thick and fast, don't they?
Yeah, there's more games, but you get 2 guaranteed games against pot 4 teams. Whereas in the old format, Villa would be pot 4 and would only play games against teams that are in.
You're going to be playing some big boys though in that. I keep using that phrase, the big boys.
No, but
you're going to be playing some big boys in that.
You would land in the group with a pot 1, a pot 2, and a pot 3, and you could be
playing 4 really big teams.
You could get really unlucky with that, but you are guaranteed a crack at 2 similarly leveled pot 4 teams in this new format. So you have a reasonable chance of 6 points. I think this new format helps Villa.
Okay, that's interesting. You're right. I have played it on Football Manager. I've got teams qualifying for the Champions League, left, right, and centre on Football Manager. Football Manager completed it, mate. But I to carry on answering the original question. I do just think the sky is the limit in Villa's setup that they've got at the moment. As long as Unai Emery is there, I just think that it's such a bonus that he has all these things at Villa, and that's why he won't leave, because he won't get this level of autonomy anywhere else. No other football club is set up in this way. And to take Villa from 17th to 4th in the space of 18 months and having already qualified for Europe, and they still might go on and win that competition, I honestly just think we're going to keep getting better and better and better, and there's something really special on the cards there.
Hopefully.
You're a Villa fan as well. Do you agree with what I'm saying?
I mean, yes, based on everything we've got now. But to George's point earlier, and using the Eddie Howe example, like sentiment can change more and more in modern football. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, maybe to protect my own feelings, but like more and more in modern football, there's a managerial cycle of about 3 years, and it seems like the modern player struggles to be stimulated by the same voice or the same methods for longer than about 3 years. So the best in the game, Guardiola, Klopp, are able to reinvent teams, and the best in the game before Sir Alex was able to completely redo teams to make sure there was fresh energy and to make sure those players didn't get tired of him and tired of his voice, tired of his methods. Villa will eventually get to a point after 3 or 4 years of Emery where they need to freshen things up a little bit, or he will need to freshen things up, or maybe it's the playing staff, maybe it's a new coach, maybe it's something else. I don't know what it is, but football randomly at some point will just get stale. And so there is no guarantee that this is it. And this will just continue on this trajectory. You're constantly given battles to fight and ways to ride. And you have to find ways over those. Often in modern football, the way people do that is to sack their manager and get a new voice. If it ever came to that, this is a massive web to untangle, given how much control he has. So it starts to reverse itself. So it's just Emery's job to keep himself fresh and to keep communicating to the players in different ways and make sure that doesn't happen. But like, that's not very common, right, for managers nowadays to be able to actually avoid that issue, Dan. That's why we see them all sacked after 3 years.
He's kind of already done that, though, hasn't he? Because the style of football Villa play is different to how he was at Arsenal. I get it's different years and different teams, but I think he learned a lot from that spell at Arsenal. Kind of learned what not to do in the Premier League. And I think the other thing is that a lot of these players have been at Villa for, like, let's say 4 or 5 years now. They weren't playing at this level until Unai Emery arrived at the club. So I think they know how special this time is as well. And I would back a lot of them to still be here over the next 3 or 4 years. I think they know. So I think that stimulates interest because they know what it was like before Unai Emery came in, and they've seen the transformation of the football club, and they won't lose that. That's my opinion anyway. Just quickly before we wrap up, just wanted to talk about Ollie Watkins, George. I think he should. I can't say I say it with no bias whatsoever. But 19 goals, 12 assists, playing for not one of the stereotypical, Big Six or a team that's challenging for the title or anything like that. Not one penalty in the mix there in the goal contributions. He's got to be in the top 3 at the very least for PFA Player of the Year. And I actually think at this point now, I think Foden will win it, but I think Watkins should win it.
He's currently, just looking at odds checker now, he's 12-1. Watkins is.
Ooh, get that bet on immediately.
So he's the 4th favourite. Can you guess the 3 players who are shorter than him?
Foden.
Yeah.
Rodri, Rice.
Yeah, correct. And then Odegaard's 14, so Odegaard's 5th. I think, if I was doing it, I would give it to Rodri, and quite easily as well. I think he is the most important player for the best team and the best player in the world. I don't think you should be blinded by goal involvements necessarily in order to decide an individual award. And I would also have
in football.
Of course they are, but I would also. This kind of wrap around the circle to what we talk about with Arsenal. But I would have Saliba probably in the top 3 or 4 as well, because he is.
How big's your top 3 or 4 here? Because 4. It's got about 8 people in it.
Well, no, you take Rice. You take Rice out, I would say.
So
yeah,
look,
I'd have Saliba, Rodri, Foden, and then possibly Watkins as a 4th.
See, I've got 2 names.
Changed.
I've got 2 names, and I'm doing my FWA vote at the end of the month, and I've narrowed it down between Watkins and Martin Odegaard. They're my top 2. But I have noticed that everyone there's literally 8 names in this conversation, and it is fascinating because it's never this way. It's usually between 2 players. Oh, Salah or De Bruyne. Oh, Salah or Van Dijk. Oh, Kevin De Bruyne or Van Dijk. And now it's like, well, we've got all these. They've literally got about 8 people here that people think definitely should win it. That's amazing.
And I do, and I think in Watkins you've got the most important player for the team that have probably exceeded expectations more than anyone else, and that has to come into it. So. Yeah, I think he's definitely in the conversation, and rightfully so. I don't think he'll win it.
Can't wait for him not to even be in the 11 now. I've hyped up that he should win it, but Haaland will probably be up front in the 11 now, which would be a little bit harsh, a little bit of a travesty. You've changed. You're the only one that's played in the EFL of all those players you've mentioned, and you've not gone for it.
Well, it just shows I'm not biased, unlike yourself.
Yeah, got a shirt. I'm not bothered. You mean with my Ollie Watkins shirt behind me? I'm not biased at all. I don't know where you've got that from. Well, we haven't talked about Chelsea at all, but we've run out of time to talk about Cole Palmer.
We've said it all before.
He gets Young Player of the Year. Done.
Yeah, cool. But hopefully he doesn't play on Saturday. Anyway, predictions for Villa v Chelsea, George?
3-1 Villa.
2-1 to Villa.
I've gone for 3-1 to Villa as well. So yeah, that's not great to predict the same as George at this point.
Well, it's fine. You've got to keep me at bay.
Yeah, that's true. Just in case. Right, we really pushed for time now, so I'll wrap it up very quickly. Thanks to the chaps for joining me today. Hopefully everyone who's tuned in has enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, whether it be video or audio, do all the things that I mention every week that help us as a channel. We'll be back next week again to preview the weekend's Premier League action and discuss our predictions. Hopefully there's a shift at the top of the table in the good old Predictions League. Have a great weekend watching all the football and tell all your friends and family about the show.